What's the most fucked up thing you've seen at work? I once provided care for a man with dementia that often led to him being paranoid. His brother, an ex-police officer, was stealing from him. He would pick up his pension but steal about 10 to 20% of it each time. When the gentleman I cared for called his brother out on it, his brother would always blame his dementia for his suspicions, and then guilt-trip him into apologizing for doubting him. Eventually we were asked to collect his pension instead of his brother, after his brother refused to provide a full paper trail of his pension and to deliver the money in the sealed envelope it's given in at the office. His brother kicked off big time, trying to get us to stop providing care so he could keep exploiting him. We stood our ground, duty of care above all else, and our man got the pension he earned through his life in full. I saw lots of other messed up stuff in that job, but there's something about a man's older brother exploiting and emotionally gaslighting him which just hits hard. I was a head lifeguard/lifeguard instructor. The worst was probably a 15-year-old boy that dove of the diving board, cracked his head open on the bottom of the pool, blood gushing, and was unconscious. My co-worker and I had to do a deep water spinal rescue, which is basically the hardest rescue at a pool. The kid not only survived, but became a fellow lifeguard himself the next summer. I trained as a lifeguard 20 years ago. I still have nightmares about deep water spinal rescues. A guy knew he was getting fired, so he took a shit in the trash can in his cubicle. Nobody knew if he did it there or took it into the bathroom to shit in it, but he did it one way or another. He got called up to HR and was let go. Then the people working in his area started complaining about the shit smell and, sure enough, I found it in his little trash can. Then I called him to ask about it and he said it was an old burrito he forgot to throw out. It was not an old burrito he forgot to throw out. In a way, it might have indeed been an old burrito. A processed old burrito. Guy cut his finger in the deli slicer and tried to keep cutting lunch meat for a customer with blood everywhere. Ouch. I was working at a butcher shop, and one of the butchers politely came up to me and whispered that I needed to finish deboning a lamb shoulder for a customer. She accidentally stabbed herself and needed to patch up her tummy. Luckily it wasn't deep, but not a great thing to hear. Coworker ended up doing, and no one in his family told his dad. The only reason his dad found out his son died was because the dad called the company to see if his son still worked there. My boss had to be the one to tell him the bad news because no one in the guy's family was willing to tell him. My God, first you tell the family, and that's the worst thing you've ever had to do, and then a few weeks go by and you're feeling better and then some guy calls and says, "Hey, does OD work there? My son OD? This is his dad, needed to get in touch with him to go over some things but his phone isn't working, do you know him? Looks just like his old man, rugged and handsome, haha. Anyway, is he in?" I couldn't. Jeez. I saw a coworker get crushed to death under 6 tons of dirt. I helped dig his body out. God, thanks for reminding me of my construction days when I was 18. We were cutting out a trench for something. I'm thinking it was a water line of some sort and was fairly deep. It was just a muddy mess, and after about 5 days straight of rain, everything was waterlogged. We had just started the workday when we heard a ton of yelling further down the trench. Turns out the shoring that was preventing the trench from collapsing had given out and buried a man inside up to his shoulders. Luckily, he survived but wasn't in a great state, had broken most of his ribs, and both his legs from the weight of the ground hitting him. The worst part was that while we were digging him out, just how serene he was. The guy had fully accepted that he was going to die. I used to work with special needs kids, ages 3 to 7, and one of them came up to me on a Monday morning and told me her dad died over the weekend, then skipped off to go play with the rest of the group. I learned later that day that he had overdosed on heroin, and I'm assuming she hadn't fully understood what being dead meant, and that she thought she might see him again. The way they process these things is incredible and very sad. I had a client whose mother died and he would say the most heartbreaking things. "It's not fair that you have a mother and I don't," being one of them. His mother was very young, and died tragically. My mum died when I was around 8 and I was upset at first, but I don't think it really hit me until a few months later when the teacher said we were making Mother's Day card in class and I just started crying and didn't really understand why at the time. I'd had an argument with my friend that morning and thought I was just upset at that. A guy losing a finger because he tried moving an industrial strength fan without turning it off first and his finger slipped through the grate. Thankfully I didn't see it, but I worked with a guy who got part of his finger taken off by an industrial mill. People were supposed to turn it off before cleaning it, but we're taking about a company that didn't even have a safety shower or eye wash station in the lab. Safety protocol were not generally followed. Seriously, I don't know how more people didn't get injured at that place. It's a matter of time. They sent him to the lab area I worked in while his nubbin healed enough for him to go back to manual labor. Worked at a call center. I was in the break area on the second floor and heard a guy getting into an argument with his soon-to-be ex-wife. I walked away and back into my call area, and about 30 seconds later the whole call center went into lockdown. Found out that the guy decided to kill himself and jump head first into the concrete floor and landed right in front of my coworker. He was granted unlimited paid days off and paid therapy for the rest of the year. I am a nurse. Used to work on an oncology unit. One of my patient's family members walked into the wrong room by accident. The patient in that room had passed away and was shrouded, waiting for transport to the morgue. She threw herself on the body, weeping, thinking it was her loved one and no one had called her. Then we realized what happened. It was not good. I do a lot of transport work for a local morgue and we've had plenty of mislabeled bodies from hospitals. One lady even got chopped up for spare parts wrongfully.